How about top rock songs from 1980 or 1981? I'm 13 years old. Let's see what they got. So I'm looking at the top 10. I'm going to pick one of these songs out of the top 10 right now, and I'm going to play the music video for it. I'm going to react to it because that's what you're supposed to do when you can't leave the house for 8 days. So I Love Rock and Roll by Joan Jett is number one. I like Joan Jett. I don't like that song so much because, well, in 1980, it was played too much. It's like her most famous song, most popular song, and that's often not the best song. I like Crimson and Clover. Um, Do You Want Me by Human League, big hit, early 80s kind of synth rock thing. That wasn't my kind of music when I was 13, nor was Tainted Love, hugely famous song. Everybody knows this song. Good song. Um, I'm going to move on. I'm looking for something that I actually really dug in 1981. So Super Freak, that's pretty cool. I did like that one. That's a great song. That's in the running. I'm just blowing through these because I am going to react to one of them. Physical by Olivia Newton-John. No. Now, when I was a little kid, like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old, uh, I remember having a terrible crush on Olivia Newton-John because she had a song that I used to hear in the car, like when my mom was going to the store and I'd be in the car, little kid, I'm like 6 years old, maybe seven. She had this song called Have You Ever Been Mellow? And I remember it. I'm sure it's not a good song. I don't really remember the whole song, but I remember like being kind of awestruck by that voice. And it was my first, like, I don't know, like recognition of a female thing. I definitely had like a crush on her, I'm sure. Number six, Don't Stop Believing. Well, I mean, that's one of the biggest songs of all time. Definitely in the running, except I don't know if anyone really needs me to react to that. You all are familiar with the song. In the Air Tonight, sort of the same thing. Huge. Wow, boy, this is a year for music, wasn't it? Look at these huge hits in rock and roll. Uh, Awesome song, In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins. Everybody knows that. And also, I think people react to it a lot. So I'm not going to do that one. Start Me Up by the Rolling Stones. I remember the Stones had a live album for this tour, and Mick was wearing like a football uniform. he was, all 125 pounds of him was dressed up like a Ron Jaworski jersey and football pants. Pretty cool. Our Lips Are Sealed by the Go-Go's. I remember being in my friend's room with like two or three of us listening to that on what in those days we actually called a record player, a shitty record player, basically like a turntable with a built-in speaker. But we loved that one. That was new and different. An all-girl rock and roll band. I mean, they weren't. It's not like no one had done that before, but it was new, and they were big. And finally, Jessie's Girl by Rick Springfield. Okay, so that I remember liking that one a lot. And I also had no idea that he was the star of General Hospital, because when I was 12 or 13 years old, I was a very cool person, and I I wouldn't have listened to the star of General Hospital making an album, but I did listen to it. I didn't know that, and I thought it was great. Um, all right, I'm going to think about these. I'm going to pick one, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and it is Jessie's Girl by Rick Springfield. Early 80s, graffiti was big.
Jessie is a friend.
I'm going to shrink myself here.
Always been a good friend of mine. But lately something's changed. It ain't
Well,
hard
he's
to
got
define. Jesse's got himself a
some kind of
girl and I wanna make
pink
her
lipstick or
mine.
something.
And she's watching him with those eyes. And she's loving.
Okay, I'd like to point out right away that the 80s, the early 80s, not the mid 80s, not the late 80s, and certainly not the goofy 90s or the atrocious late 70s, but the early 80s, people actually looked pretty cool, right? Like it's the easiest thing in the world to make fun of the way we all dressed. But for that brief window, this is pretty cool. This is kind of what people looked like. I mean, obviously Rick Springfield's a very handsome man, but the thin tie, the suit that fits, uh, take the early 80s actually for dressing. And then shortly after that, it became very strange and then kind of clownish. And before that, it was clownish as well. But this little window of time.
With that body, I just know it. And he's holding her in his arms late, late at night. You know, I wish that I had Jessie's girl. I wish that I had Jessie's
Noticing that the guitars are plugged in. That's pretty cool.
girl.
In the 80s,
Can I find
when
her?
videos were a new thing, uh, they were always playing their instruments in these videos not plugged in, which, you know, if you, it's just silly. They walk around with unplugged in guitars, and we're getting the sort of Ridley Scott film noir shot of Jessie's girl.
I'll play along with the charade. There doesn't seem to be a reason.
The clothes aren't bad. Sort of a
You know, I
pre-members
feel so
only
dirty
kind of
when they
thing going.
start talking cute. I wanna tell her that I love her, but the point is probably moot. 'Cause she's watching him with those eyes.
Not plugged in here. So they filmed them actually playing live. And then when they put the suit on and stood in front of the Jesse's girl graffiti on the set, suddenly not plugged in.
And she's loving him with that
I like the white
body, I
shoes.
just know it. And he's holding her in his arms late, late at night. You know, I wish that I had Jesse's girl. I wish that
All
I had
plugged in there.
Jesse's girl.
And the pillow inside the bass drum, what you need to make that sound. You can tell they probably working on a budget as musicians here, because they don't even have the cover for the bass drum that says Rick Springfield or Van Halen or whatever, and you can see the pillow stuffed in there. That's pretty cool. All plugged in.
Where can I find a woman like that, like Jesse's girl?
Clearly shot in Los Angeles by professionals. As you can see, they framed him in the lights. That's pretty cool, actually. I mean, for just working with a camera.
I wish that I had Jesse's girl. Where can I find a woman? Where can I find a woman like that?
Now we're getting into the story. He's the star of General Hospital. Gonna tell us a story about Jesse's girl.
There all the time. Wondering
There
what
she is. She
knows
haunts
in
him in his mirror,
me. I've been funny, I've been cool.
but she's not really there.
Lines. Ain't that the way love's supposed to be?
Nigel Tufnell face from Spinal Tap there.
Tell me, where can I find a woman like that?
Unfortunate how not plugged in that guitar is, but Rick is clearly playing his own
You know I wish
solo.
that I had Jesse's girl.
He's playing all of it.
I wish that I had Jesse's girl. I want Jesse's girl. Where can I find a woman like that, like Jesse's girl? I wish that I had Jesse's girl. I want Jesse's girl.
Okay, Rick Springfield, that was nice. That's a great song. It's a terrific song. I think it holds up. I think that song could be a hit today. You change the arrangement around a little bit. The keyboard sounded very 1980s, but the song, that was great. I wonder if Rick Springfield would have been a bigger star if he wasn't on General Hospital. It's a weird thing because, like, I'm sure, because he's a musician. He wasn't like an actor, like, hey, let's make a record with a guy who's not really a musician. I mean, clearly he's a musician. I imagine he might even have written that song. Um, and it was really good. But he's a handsome dude. He was in Los Angeles. He probably was an actor too, and he got that gig first and kind of didn't do acting really because he wanted to be a musician, and that break happened too. And he had this song and it's something else that came after this that was a big hit too. Um, I wonder if like because I know that I always thought of him as an actor when I was a kid and listening to rock songs. I was like, oh yeah, that actor with the song. So to me, without really understanding, I'm thinking, this is Sean Cassidy or something like that. I wonder if he would have been a bigger star because I know like he's had this a whole like long career. Like he still plays and tours and stuff, and he's good. Interesting. That was Jesse's Girl, 1981. That was my uh reaction due to COVID, and that was fun. I'll do this again. All right. Thanks.